it's Jessie G here. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to Jessie's Hangout. This is episode 17. I hope you guys enjoyed 15 and 16's episode, and I hope you enjoyed the John Wilmot episodes too. This historical series has been really awesome. This is the last person and the last full part of the historical series. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking about these people. It was really awesome to be able to do this. I might add on to the historical series sometime in the future. I might do it again. But after this, I'll be going right on into my true crime series, which I hope you guys will enjoy that as well. It was very interesting, to say the least, writing all those notes out for it. I tried to take notes of everything, so that way when I'm talking to you guys, I kind of have all my stuff in a row. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. But before I get into today's episode, you guys saw a copyright disclaimer, an age warning, a sensitive trigger warning. I'm going to say those warnings and that disclaimers again, so that way you guys have heard it from me and you guys will take those at your own discretion. So without further ado, let's get into it. Copyright disclaimer: under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarships, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statutes that might otherwise be interfering. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Basically, when I say this copyright disclaimer, this means me telling you that I agree and accept the copyright laws. I have no intention on violating them. I have no intention on encouraging them, nor will I ever encourage that type of stuff at all. I have no intentions on having any issues with my videos, even though I still continue to seem to have those. But thankfully, when I did my live update, hopefully they cleared the situation with that. And then putting these in my videos as well cleared that situation as well. So with that said, if you are under the age of 18, this is not an episode for you guys to listen to. Much apologies for that. This is just one of those episodes that are not for 18 and under ears. If you are triggered or sensitive by any of the topics that will be talked about in today's episode, I highly recommend that you don't listen to today's episode. But if you do choose to listen to today's episode at your own discretion, I highly recommend that you listen to it with somebody like your emotional support system, like your best friend, your sister, your brother, your aunt, your uncle, your grandparent, a parent, somebody you trust enough to sit down with you and listen to these episodes with. So without further ado, now that I've all said all that stuff, let's get into today's episode. As you guys can tell from the title, it's all about Elizabeth Tudor, aka Queen Elizabeth II, or not the second, Elizabeth I, sorry. I had Elizabeth II on the brain today. My apologies. It's all about Elizabeth I. So I hope you guys will enjoy today's episode, so let's get into her. Queen Elizabeth I, aka Elizabeth Tudor, was born on the 7th of September 1533 to Queen Anne Boleyn and King Henry VIII of England. She was born just a few months after her parents had married and after her mother's coronation. She was not a son and heir that was supposed to happen between Anne and Henry. They struggled to have sons. They struggled with a lot of things. It was really hard. The first couple of months of Elizabeth's life was rejected. The first years or so, it was really hard for Elizabeth. even though that she got a christening, even though she was doted on by her father, even though she was um, legitimized to the throne, even though she was in line for the throne, and also any other children that Anne had with Henry were legitimized to the throne. And even though she went through her half sister Mary being um, unlegitimized, I'm just going to put it that way, to the throne, and losing her title, and Mary's mother losing her title. I think there was some resentment between Mary and Elizabeth. I think uh, Mary might have, in some sort of a way, have been jealous of Elizabeth a lot. And I think she didn't really like Elizabeth because she was the daughter of who they quote unquote called her the whore Anne Boleyn, which wasn't true. Um, Elizabeth lived through a horrific event. Her mother was executed on May the 19th, 1536. On that year and that day, Elizabeth was stripped of her titles. She had nothing. Henry took everything from her. She was unlegitimized to the throne. She was knocked off the throne. Um, she had no rights to anything. She basically just lived off by the seat of her skirt, the hem of her skirt, so to speak. Um, but through the kindness of Henry, the aged second or third wife, I should say, um, through the kindness of Jane Seymour, Jane kind of took some sort of, I want to say, pity in a way on Elizabeth, but she favored Mary a lot. But she felt really guilty for the fact that Elizabeth had to live the way that she lived because of what happened to her mother, and between what happened to her mother and the relationship between her mother and father and how that ended. Um, she also had a lot of friction with her sister who ascended to the throne. Um, just about 6 years or about 8 years or however long it took her to get onto the throne. And when Mary the First of England was on the throne, it got even more difficult for Elizabeth because not only did she go through a mental and physical traumatizing events from her, uh, I want to say he was her uncle, but in a way, I don't know if he really wasn't. But Thomas Seymour kind of had a thing for Elizabeth because of Elizabeth being of royal blood. Um, and he kind of went behind Catherine Parr's back because of it. And she went through some very traumatic events with him. And it didn't help that she had a lot of enemies because of Mary, her sister. She was accused of conspiring to take Mary's throne. She was accused of being a heretic and believing in what she believed in, being a Protestant. Um, there was a big war between Catholics and Protestants back in the 1500s as well. Mary the First of England was known as Bloody Mary because she killed a lot of Protestants. It was a very bloody few years that she was on the throne. It was very not so much hard just for the people of England. It was definitely hard for Elizabeth, and I think the people of England kind of saw Elizabeth as their way out of, excuse me for saying this, way out of the hell that they were going through. And I can't really say I blame them. When Mary died, um, she became queen in 1558 at the age of 25 years old after her sister Mary died due to, I want to say, a tumor. She thought that she was pregnant, but because her belly was so swollen, it was because of a tumor, and that's what caused the uh, issues that she had. She also, not only did she have issues conceiving a child, she had a lot of illnesses when she was younger. Um, and then her marriage to Philip was humiliating as well, because Philip had eyes for Elizabeth because she was young. and of royal blood. It was also said that when Elizabeth was sent to the Tower, she also was uh, sent to talk to her sister and kind of plead for her life with her sister. And they kind of had this sister talk moment. And it was very historical moment for the both of them and for everybody. Um, like I said, I think there was a lot of resentment between Mary and Elizabeth. I think Mary kind of resented Elizabeth a lot for what she went through, for becoming a maid to her, becoming, or I should say, a lady in waiting, and to all of his wives, and for what she had to go through. Um, I think she put a lot of the blame on Elizabeth and a lot of the blame on Anne Boleyn, because Anne Boleyn was the one that seduced her father, supposedly, into a lot of things that Henry blamed Anne for. But in all, he was a king of England. He was in charge of his own feelings and his own choices. He made those own choices regardless of whether Anne had any influence on him or not. In my opinion, um, Elizabeth uh, had a lot of enemies when she succeeded to the throne. Her coronation was on the 15th of January, 1559. Um, how the Elizabeth had found out, she ran out to a tree and she was presented by the people who were under Mary the ring, and she said, I can't remember exactly if this is the correct speech. She said, "This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous," and some sort of a speech like that. She was really taken by it. She was in her 20s when she ascended to the throne, just like Queen Elizabeth II. She was like 21, I think, when she ascended to the throne after her father died. Um, so it was a bit of a rough time. Her troubles got even more worse because it was one of the things that was really big historical moment in her reign was the friction that was caused between Mary, Queen of Scots, and Elizabeth. The friction that was going on between them because when Mary of Scots was married to Francis of France, France was after her throne, and England was after the Scots throne, but also after Mary as well. Um, Mary was unexpected. She wasn't supposed to be a girl. Girls weren't supposed to ascend to the throne. But Mary's only choice of being completely safe was to marry Francis of France and be the Queen of France and Scotland. Um, and France was after the English throne, anyways. So it was kind of an alliance between the two of them. Um, there was a bit of friction that went on between them, and it ultimately resulted in Mary of Scots' execution. Um, it was also said that Elizabeth took Mary's execution really hard. It took a very big emotional and physical toll on her, because I'm thinking it was mostly due to what her father did to her mother and her stepmother, Catherine Howard, and to know that she went through those two deaths. She didn't want to become that person that had to do that, I think, and it was very hard and very difficult. And when she got news of Mary's death, she went, I want to say, hysterical. She just was beside herself. I don't think she really ever forgave herself for Mary's death, honestly, in my opinion. I think Mary of Scots' death she took really hard. Um, um, it was also another thing in her life was Robert Dudley. When she ascended to the throne, he was beside her all the time, and due to a certain event that led them to their friendship and whatever it was ending, and then him passing away on his own and her taking his death to heart. Really, she took it really hard, and then she had an infatuation or a fling with his stepson, who was also named Robert, um, and he ended up being executed for treason for creating a rebellion against Elizabeth, and he was executed for it. Um, so that was some certain events in life. Her reign was also known as the Golden Age. She ruled for about 45 years. She uh, died on March the 24th, 1603, at the age of 69. She outlived her father. She outlived her entire family. She was the last of the royal Tudor line. Um, that's not including descendants or anything like that. Um, uh, so it was really rough, and what makes this so kind of irony is the son of Mary the First of Scots, James the First of Scotland, ended up being uh, King James the First of England and King James the Sixth of Scotland. So his coronation was the 25th of July, 1603, which was a couple of months after Elizabeth's death. Um, his successor was Charles the First, and I think Charles the First of England was also the father of Charles the Second. So King James the First was the grandfather to Charles the Second, and also uh, not only that, um, Mary was the great grandmother to Charles the Second, um, and also Charles the First too. She was a grandmother to Charles First and the great grandmother to Charles II. Um, what basically when James ascended to the throne after Elizabeth, and when he passed, King Charles ascended to the throne, and some things happened. There was some friction between him and Parliament, and ultimately resulted in King Charles' execution by a man named Thomas. I can't remember his name, but I think it was Thomas Kerner or something like that, along the lines of that. And he ascended to the throne, and he wasn't king for very long, and he passed away. And then it made way for Charles II to come back to the throne and ascend to the throne of England. And he was also the King of England, and I think he was also the King of Scotland. So it was a big thing. There was a big long line of things, and it was a big irony with all of that. There's so much history behind all that. Um, I think I pretty much already said this, but Elizabeth ruled for about 45, 47 years until ultimately her death. It was said that the time of her death, she was standing up for a long time. She wouldn't eat for a couple of days. She just kind of stood there a lot until she finally fell over and soon finally passed. And um, it was also said that the makeup that Elizabeth was wearing was due to covering up scars from having a smallpox during her reign. She was very touchy about her vanity a lot. Um, she was very touchy about getting old. Um, uh, Her reign was called the Golden Age. Um, Even though she ruled with an iron fist, Elizabeth was still a great queen. She basically ended the feud that was going on between the Christian and the Catholics, killing each other, so to speak. There's still feuds about religion still to this day. They're still going on between all religions as a big political thing. Um, So it's still going on to this day. But I think when Elizabeth's reign, it was kind of a peaceful type of reign. She tried to. She changed the future of England a lot. Um, Not only was she the first woman uh, queen on the throne, she was, and not only was she that, she was a Tudor as well. And then the second woman that entered the throne was Elizabeth II after she ascended to the throne after her father Edward had passed away. Um, uh, it was also said that during the time before she went on the throne, and when she went on the throne, she didn't really speak of her mother. It was a very touchy subject. She never really talked to her mother. It was also said that she was put in the same room as her mother was in. There were sketchings on the wall that was from Anne when she was in there. She did write on a piece of glass. I don't know if it's still there, but she wrote on the glass a quote on the glass when she was imprisoned by her sister. Um, uh, it was also there was a conspiracy theory about Elizabeth I that she is supposedly from Cat Ashley, who was her lady in waiting. Supposedly, it was said that she died as a child and they switched her with a male, and that she really wasn't a woman, that she was a male, which was never really proven. It was really strange. It was a conspiracy theory, in my opinion. I think it was a bunch of rubbish, in my opinion. But that was one of the many conspiracy theories as to why she was a virgin, which was really strange, to say the least. I thought it was kind of funny in a way. I was like, wow, they thought that this woman was a man. Um, I think the reason for her being a virgin, in my opinion, was because of what she went through with the last five wives of Henry VIII, and the trauma and the physical and mental toll that it took on her, and the friction that she had between her sister, and knowing what it meant to marry a man, and she didn't want to be ruled over by a man. She wanted to be her own person, and she wanted to be her own queen. She wanted to rule over England. She didn't want to share that power with a man. Kind of basically like Catherine the Great's situation. This was her situation in a way. Um, she also wore toxic makeup to cover up the. I think I mentioned that, to cover up the smallpox scars that it left on her face. There was a lot of portraits of her. She was well known to wear huge dresses and these huge fans that went behind her. Um, she was known for that. She was known for these decorative hair wigs. It was also said that Elizabeth shaved her hair off to become the Virgin Queen, and she wore hair wigs. Um, it was said that's what she wore. Uh, so wigs were known um, throughout the 1600s, well into the 1700s, and even now, wigs are known uh, for people wearing them. Um, so yeah, that was a little bit about um, Elizabeth and her triumphs and her bumps in the road, and her biggest. She did her biggest speech, her biggest thing when she was at war with Spain, and she won that war against Philip of Spain. So that she did a really big speech. She was actually on the battlefield. So she was the first woman to ever really go into battle with men. So it was a really big thing. So she made her stamp in history. She made a really big mark in it. I hope you guys enjoyed the historical series that I did. I hope you enjoyed all the people that I covered. Um, Go check them all out. My first first two episodes were all about Queen Anne Boleyn, and then I did one on John Wilmot, and then Henry Rex Tudor, aka Henry VIII of England. I did it on him, and of course Queen Elizabeth the First of England. I did an episode which you're listening to now. I hope you guys enjoyed them. Stay tuned for the true crime episodes. I have a lot of those popping out, so stay tuned for those. I hope you guys have an awesome morning, afternoon, day, or night, wherever you are watching this from, and I will catch you guys in my next episode. Later.